So how do you create a successful social script? I've touched on some of it, but I just wanted to sort of break it down into the 5 key elements. The first is to think about, are you going to use photos, line drawings, comic strips, video, as I mentioned before, or even get the kid to illustrate it. Lots of my kids love drawing and they find it really relaxing. So get them involved in drawing, colouring, even choosing what colour paper you're going to put it on. Get them, the more involved they are in the social script, I find the better outcome, the more attached and involved they are. So have a think, what are you going to do? You're going to Google images for the camp, or are you going to find photos from last year, of the year 6s from last year? Have a think how you're going to do that. Hi everyone, welcome to the Sue Larkey podcast. As I always say, you have to embrace difference to make a difference. Let's dive into today's podcast. Hi, Sue Larkey here. Today, I really want to share with you about promoting social understanding using a fantastic tool called social scripts. Many of you would have heard of social stories. These are actually trademarked by Carol Gray, so I have to use the word social scripts. If you're new to what are social stories or social scripts, don't worry, I'm going to explain all about it today, how to use them, how to write them, when to use them. So we're going to dive in really deep to understanding social scripts. And these will just be one strategy used in social skills. And I really think social skills is something we have to keep working on. It's ongoing. Even as an adult, if you're in a new workplace that might have different rules to other places, or new family members come into your life, or you kids start a new school, or think of yourself. There are different social rules and social situations where we're constantly adjusting. And for kids on the spectrum, they find this really confusing, why one rule applies in one place and not in another place. And this is why we use social scripts, to understand that, for example, sometimes your friends play with you, sometimes they play with other people. That's okay, they're still your friend. Because many of my kids worry if someone plays with someone else, they're no longer their friend. So Anna Tullemans, who many of you will know, I've written a number of books with, the big red and blue books for teacher assistants, the Essential Guide to Secondary, and the Ultimate Guide to Home and School. Anna has a son, Daniel, who is now, in his late 20s on the spectrum. But Anna, whenever we were writing books, used to always give me great examples of how she used social scripts for Daniel and how they worked. And what Anna said, which I just loved, and I have quoted her many times, is improvement in behaviour doesn't come from the social script. It comes from improved understanding of events and situations. And this is why it's so important that we write social scripts in a way that help understanding. So, for example, one of the ones I love that Anna used to share is that her mum is Italian. So when she'd come to stay, she would hug Daniel really tight. And as a result, whenever Nonna was coming, he would run upstairs because he didn't want to be hugged really tight. So what Anna did is she wrote a social story for Daniel that when Nonna comes to stay, Nonna likes to hug you. Nonna hugs you to show her love and how happy she is to see you. So it's explaining the event, Nonna's emotions, and why Nonna's doing it. I think the social story said something like, Nonna will hug you for 10 seconds, count to 10. So told Daniel what to do in that action. And then to say, I love you too, Nonna, and then he could go up to his bedroom. So really explaining the whole situation, because the truth is he doesn't like it. So we need to explain why we hug each other. It's so important, social stories or social scripts, tell the child what to do. I get so frustrated, and I just had an email this week where a boy who was trying to get nonverbal, a few words, trying to get staff's attention and going up and sort of laughing in their faces and touching them and doing inappropriate behaviour. And they wrote a social story saying, or social script, saying no touching. Well, actually, guys, we do want to teach him to touch. We want him to teach him to tap people on the arm to get their attention or high five to get their attention. Telling him no touching actually is the wrong information. There are times children do need to touch each other. And I get really upset for kids because we give them the wrong information. Saying no touching, well, what happens when he has to line up and they say hold hands? Kids on the spectrum, they hear no, they hear never. So what you need to tell him is when you want a teacher's attention, you can go and high five them or you can tap them on the arm and show him what to do. And then once you've got the teacher's attention and so forth, and really explain what to do. Now, what I love about social scripts, you could actually video that. And with your iPad, which is one of the ways I love to do it, particularly with children who have limited verbal communication, we could actually video him tapping someone on the arm. Can I really emphasize teaching a child to tap twice on the arm? Think of yourself. I'm just doing it to myself as I'm doing this podcast, but think of yourself. Just tap. Well, not if you're driving, but tap yourself twice on the arm. That's appropriate. Teaching children to tap on the forearm or part of the arm, not on your leg, not on your head. Teaching them the appropriate place to tap is a really important social skill, and a great way to teach that social skill is through social scripts. And that social script can be a video. And so actually creating that video of the child tapping is a great way to write a social script. So when you want people's attention, you can tap them. So tell the child what to do, not what not to do. So the other one I see a lot in schools is a no hitting social script. Actually, not no hitting. Everyone gets angry. Sometimes when we get angry, we need to clench our fists or let a teacher know we're angry or walk away. Don't say no hitting. You're not actually telling the child what to do. Anyway, I'm sure you've got the idea, and those of you who have heard me speak before and been to my workshops have heard me talk about this. Oh, I must share with you one of my favourite social scripts I use for oppositional defiant disorder kids or children who are a little bit disengaged, but it sort of goes like this. Sometimes at school we do things we like. Sometimes at school we do things that are boring. Sometimes we do things at a school we've done before. That's okay. At school we do lots of different things, because I have a lot of oppositional kids who'll get work and go, this is boring. I've done it before. I hate this, which is just true, actually. In their world, it's really true. And I think acknowledging that at school, we don't do all exciting stuff, acknowledging that sometimes we do stuff that is boring. And so I'll just say to the child, remember, sometimes at school, we do things we've done before. Sometimes at school, we do things that are boring. That's okay. And the other thing I love to do with that sort of social script is just sort of get the whole class to put their hands up. Who thinks this is boring? Who's done it before? So that the child can visually see they're not the only one experiencing that. And that's the same with everyone gets angry. Everybody gets frustrated. That's okay. And that's what I like about social scripts. They're really reassuring the child or student or adult even, they're not the only one who experiences this. Okay, sorry, I hope that's not too long an introduction about social scripts, but I really just wanted to set the scene, particularly for those of you that are new to social scripts about them. So in my newsletter, Term 3, 2018, I've really got a fantastic visual of how to write a social script. It's a great template. So if any of you are new to social scripts, highly recommend that you download the example of how to write a social script. And it really lays it out step by step to make it easy for you. Or jump on my blog on my website, www.sulaki.com, and you can also download, and it has a .au on the end, sorry, always forget that. You can also download this on my blog page about promoting social understanding. So let's talk about how to use social scripts. So for me, social scripts are used for new activities or a change. So you might have a social script for what to do if the teacher's away. And all my kids I support have a what to do if your teacher's away. So we start off with the name of the social script, which is what to do if your teacher's away. And then we explain sometimes teachers are away. Sometimes teachers have meetings. Sometimes teachers' families need them. Sometimes teachers need to go to the doctor. Sometimes teachers are away. Now, depending on your situation, you need to explain. Usually if a teacher's away, there is a relief teacher in the room, and explain what happens next. Some of my kids actually will go to the teacher next door if there's a relief teacher in the room. I highly recommend that, because so often the other children have a bit of fun with relief teachers, change their names, muck around, and this can cause anxiety for the kids on the spectrum. Some of my kids wouldn't want to move class, don't need to move class, that's okay. One of my little girls in year 2, her friends are in year 5. She'll go to the year 5 class of the day. One of my more complex boys who has trauma, we don't leave him with the relief teacher, because for him, his trauma is he's in out-of-home care. So we don't want him to have an untrusted adult in the room. It's not really fair on him, and it's not fair on the relief staff. So he actually goes to the office and helps out for the day. So I need you to ask yourself, what would make, if I'm away, what would make this day run smoothly for the child or student and the teacher? In secondary, I often just get them to go to the library and do the set work for the day, or that lesson. So have a think what would work best. I always, with anything, think, what is the educational outcome? What is the goal? The teacher's only away for a day, then maybe it's okay to go to the office for the day. But if we know the teacher's going away for 2 weeks, then I'd probably set something else in place. So just have a little think what works best. So, and that's an example of the social situation that you might use a social script. You might also use it for going on an excursion, going on camp, swimming lessons. Now, all those things, I love to get on Google Images. There's so much online now of your local swimming pool where you go, or your going to Canberra on an excursion or camping ground. So get on Google Images and have a look, and you can download lots of information about those places. I also have been using social scripts a lot more for kids who have a loss of a family member or a pet, parents who separate or divorce, or even a new baby. And with the new baby social scripts, what I found works best is giving this child a job. Like, what is their job going to be for the new baby? Is it to get the nappies? Is it to get the bath out? Or their job might be to get mum a drink, when mum's breastfeeding. Or I like to make sure the child actually has a job to do to help the new baby, just to create that relationship. So I highly recommend that you use social scripts for new activities or a change. The other way I use it is understanding expectations or rules. So that might be what to do if I need help. I mean, I have so many kids who just don't know how to ask for help. They'll call out, they'll cry, they'll shut down. Other kids work it out, but ASD kids seem not to really always know when to ask for help, or when to ask the child next to them versus when to ask the teacher. So some teachers have a rule, see two, then see me. I tend to use that because I actually think that's developing social skills too, when kids have to go to other kids for help. So see two, then see me. Or you might have put your hand up or line up at the table. I think it's really important that we recognise that all teachers have different rules. And in primary, kids tend to have the same teacher for the whole day. So you might have a set of rules if a kid needs help, what to do. But in secondary, kids can have up to 8 teachers a day. So when I do transition to secondary or support kids in secondary classes, I normally have a 1-pager at the front of each subject that says how to ask your teacher for help, what to do if you haven't finished your homework, how to hand in your homework, because some teachers you have to email it, some you actually physically have to print it out and put it in a plastic sleeve, what to do if you're running late for class, what to do if you miss a class. So each teacher has quite different rules around that. So that's what I like to do, to actually pre-warn the student about different teachers have different rules or expectations. What to do if you make a mistake. That is a huge one. I have so many kids, if they make a mistake, rip up the whole worksheet, stop work, so I'd encourage all of you to write a social script, what to do if you make a mistake. So that might be cross it out, rub it out, ask a friend for help, get another worksheet. Some people give a whole new worksheet. So have a think about yourself. But again, guys, are you feeling a bit confused? Are you feeling like, I'm not really sure? It depends what subject. It depends what situation. I agree. And that's why these kids get so confused and often then don't do anything, because they'd prefer to do nothing than make a mistake. They'd prefer to do nothing than to ask for help. They feel quite vulnerable in that situation. And often by the time they ask for help, they are so overwhelmed, they can't even hear you. Teacher aides, or angels, as I call you, as you know, when you're in the room, this kid gets so much more work done. But I think a lot of that is because you're there to guide them, help them without them needing to ask. And you're also there to help with mistakes and so forth. So I would recommend you write a what to do when you're not there. And this is part of building independence towards secondary and beyond. Because in the workplace in the future, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to need to ask for help. These are life skills. There's some other ones there that I recommend too for understanding expectations and rules, like sitting on the mat, waiting in line, what to do when you get to school, what to do when you lose something. There's lots of different ways to write social scripts and social stories. So how do you create a successful social script? I've touched on some of it, but I just wanted to sort of break it down into the 5 key elements. The first is to think about, are you going to use photos, line drawings, comic strips, video, as I mentioned before, or even get the kid to illustrate it. Lots of my kids love drawing and they find it really relaxing. So get them involved in drawing, colouring, even choosing what colour paper you're going to put it on. Get them, the more involved they are in the social script, I find the better outcome, the more attached and involved they are. So have a think, what are you going to do? You're going to Google images for the camp, or are you going to find photos from last year, of the year 6s from last year? Have a think how you're going to do that. The second thing is, once you've done that, are you going to get them to write the words, or are you going to write the words? Are you going to do it together? And are you going to type the words, or are you going to handwrite the words? These are all decisions to be made. I'm very careful to make sure it's in their words where possible. So I never laminate the social script until we've done it a few times, so I know that they actually understand it. Because remember, there's a difference between reading and comprehension. So just checking it makes sense to them. The other thing is, as mentioned above, it must be positive. So it's really, really important. Your social scripts are very positive. So it's not like I often interrupt. Sometimes I hit other children. We need to be more positive than that. Sometimes I want to tell someone something. When I need to tell someone something, I need to check if they're talking first or whatever. That's the I do not interrupt people, okay? But the most important part of any social skill or social script is to use words like sometimes, usually, often, occasionally. You must allow for flexibility. Otherwise, what happens? Kids with ASD will actually start to police other kids, in my experience. So if other kids push in the line, or other kids call out or interrupt, or they will get highly anxious around these black and white rules. So we must use words like sometimes, usually, occasionally, often, so that we keep that flexibility. And so the last thing, once you've done all the above, you need to read the social script with the student or the child, check they understand it. Often takes a few edits to get it right. Make sure that it's really working, and then I laminate it and spiral bound it, or whatever you want to do. But I find it fascinating how many of my kids are like in year 5 and still like to read their year 1 social scripts. They love to refer back to them. If they're a good social script, they'll keep it for years. So that's why it is worth laminating it, making it nice. But the key is to revisit it before the problem comes up. So, but if you've made a what to do in the playground social script, reread that every morning. Reread that before the break, not after when there's been a problem. So to me, it's about rereading these. And one of the social scripts I love to use, it's a book of ready-made scripts by Anna Tallermans, who I mentioned earlier. She and Rhonda, who are both mums, wrote a fantastic ready-to-made social scripts called How to Stop Your Words from Bumping. If any of you listening have a kid starting school next year or transitioning kids from preschool to primary, I highly recommend you have a look at How to Stop Your Words from Bumping. It's just everything the kid needs to do to start school. How to line up, how to put your hand up, how to wait for a turn. The one I love the most is how to ignore. Because teachers will often say to a kid, just ignore that kid. And my kids have no idea how to ignore. Actually, often they start following that kid around. So really, for me, these are great transition social scripts from daycare or preschool to school. So please have a look at those. Carol Gray, who is the founder of Social Stories, has written a beautiful social story book called The New Social Story Book, which I think has over 100 social stories pre-written and made for you to use. I use them as a fantastic template. I don't always use the stories exactly how they are, but they are a great starting point for writing your social scripts and ensuring you keep positive and what replacement to put in place. So I highly recommend. They're both on my website if you're interested in them, and they're both fabulous ways to just pick up, photocopy and use. And just a reminder, in my newsletter, Term 3 2018, is a great template that talks you through how to create a social script. The title, perspective sentence, coaching sentence, alternative scenario, descriptive sentence, and the conclusion or affirmation. And the example I've got there is what to do if you need help. So I encourage you to have a look at that and see if that can help the kids you know and create some social scripts. The other thing that I'd encourage you to look at is on my website and in Term 3's newsletter, there's my top 10 tips for helping with social skills. And remember, social skills is ongoing. I recommend doing it with the whole family, whole class. Everyone needs to keep working on social skills. There's my book, Developing Social Skills, which I'm sure many of you have seen or hiding in your school. It's got like an orangey cover. It is available as an ebook for any of you listening overseas. And look, the advantage of that, it already has some social scripts in it. My favourite one is when to tell and when not to tell, i.e. when to dob and when not to dob. That's a great example of a social script, but it also has lots of skill building activities you can do one-on-one, small groups. And we have thousands of schools using that book, and the feedback is amazing because it's very much a pick up, ready to use book of resources. I call it what to teach, how to teach, ready to go. And it really is ready to go. And it's just like, pick it up. Here's a playground plan for the kid. This is what we're going to put in place. And I had a teacher email me this week who said this little boy, A, coming into school happy every day, B, happy to go out in the playground because he's got his playground plan and he's absolutely loving knowing what's going to happen because he used to get highly anxious and not want to go out in the playground. Biggest stress of his day. There's also a board game, Socially Speaking, which I adore. You don't have to play it as a board game. Take the cards out. You can do them as a whole family, or you can do them as a whole class, or you can do them in groups. Lots of schools use that board game for their passive playgrounds, which is classrooms that are open for kids to come and play games. And using something like the Socially Speaking board game with all kids helps all kids know about social scenarios. Anyway, there's a heap of books I highly recommend that you have a look at on my website or in this term's newsletter. I hope you've got some great tips to make a difference to the kids you know today. Remember, as I always say, not every strategy works for every kid. Strategies wear out. And to know someone with autism is not to know autism. Every child is an individual. But I'm hoping that you can use social scripts to make a difference to the kids you know. I hope you've got some great tips and strategies to make a difference. Remember, strategies wear out and not every strategy works for everybody. If you're ready to dive in deeper to more strategies and ideas to make a difference, I'd highly recommend you consider Dr. Tony Atwood or my online courses. For more information, visit my website www.sulaki.com.au.